Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all fandoms, welcome to the Ferret Raccoon podcast, episode 150. I am your one and only host for this podcast, the Angry Raccoon, bringing you the last podcast of September 2020. And as I'm sure all of you have pretty much realized, I have a sore throat at the moment. So this podcast is going to have to be really short. I apologize if I sound breathless or I sound a bit odd, but I think the main reason why I have it is because going back to work involved me to basically be talking a lot more because, usually for the last couple of months I wasn't talking at all or talking at home, but being outside talking and then the weather being as bright as it was and then as windy as it was has kind of messed me up. I kind of regret not recording this podcast a day earlier, but hey, I wasn't really going to cancel the podcast just for this. So I apologize once again if I sound really odd or if I sound breathless for the most part. It is just a sore throat and nothing else. Just a quick disclaimer. But we got a short podcast because the last 2 weeks was quite eventful, but I'm not going to necessarily talk about everything. I'm kind of just going to talk about the things that I was pretty interested in and kind of annoyed about at the same time. So let's not waste too much time. The first thing I want to talk about is the one show I watched and finished this over the course of the last podcast, which was YOLO Crystal Fantasies. Now, I can't remember the name of the creator of this series, but he is a YouTuber. If you type in YOLO parts 1 and 2, you'll find his name. He's done other animations. I believe he also did the Smiling Friends pilot as well for Adult Swim. And this is his Adult Swim TV series, YOLO Crystal Fantasies, which has a very simple premise. It basically follows two female best friends on their quest to essentially party. And that's basically it. But what essentially happens is just random, dumb, and confusing adventures. It is a animated series. It is very much in the spirit of Adult Swim, in that I honestly believe the creators are having as much fun making it as people are watching it and just, making fun of it or kind of just saying how ridiculous it is. It intentionally does have that very basic to very ugly kind of animation style, and at points its randomness and just its very unapologetic mocking of Australian life is quite funny. So if you want to see a different perspective on, a completely different country, because Australia is not necessarily a target or country that's really parodied, especially over here in the West. So it was quite interesting to see all these very silly and dumb things, lots of Australian accents. If you're a big fan of people screaming and shouting, there's a lot of that in this series. I would say if you do like a lot of the more Adult Swim animated series that do kind of fall in line with this, just so random, it's, clever, or so bad it's good to some extent, or so unfunny it's funny, that kind of stuff. It does fall in line with that. It's a very, very short series. It's only about 8 episodes, so you could honestly finish it in just over an hour if you really wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it. I would say maybe 2 episodes at a time. That's how I did it. But I would actually recommend it if you want something that's just so bizarre to watch. It does have some actually really strong and really clever moments. My favorite episode is still the first episode, which revolves around the two main girls, Rachel and Sarah, being invited to the party of this, I believe her name is Madison, who is obviously the most popular girl, and it essentially revolves around, one of them wanting to get a selfie with her. And there's some great moments and a little bit of nice commentary about social status and the world in today. So I would highly recommend this series if you have the time. It's on Adult Swim, very short. But thoroughly enjoyed it. But let's move on to what happened over the last fortnight. Quite a bit. I did cut a few trailers because, to be honest, guys, I was either A, not feeling some of these film trailers, or B, there wasn't enough to talk about two particular trailers. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk about them next podcast, because obviously I started to get a sore throat a couple of days ago, and I knew my voice isn't going to last very long. Like, even now you can kind of tell it's already starting to go, and I haven't even talked about the first main topic. But I definitely want to mention a few trailers for the next podcast, but we'll see. The first thing I want to talk about is obviously the big news that PlayStation 5 finally revealed its price and release date. They did this during a what do they call it, PlayStation Showcase event live stream, in which they basically showcased a couple of other games that are coming to the platform, some stuff we've seen, some new stuff, and the main thing everyone wanted to see was the release for PS5, which is going to be November 12th for countries such as America, Japan, Canada, and Australia, New Zealand, and I believe North Korea. I might have forgotten a few countries, but I'm only surprised that England was not included in that. But we'll see, because everyone else, or the rest of the world, is getting it November 19th, which is interesting. I do wonder, I'm not upset or anything, I'm just very curious as to see why countries like Australia is getting it before England, only because Australia has really odd and restrictive limits on video gaming. For those of you who don't know, Australia is not a fan of video gaming. They basically ban or won't allow almost any game that has any semblance of blood or violence in it. So given that most of the games launching on the PS5 are going to contain blood, it kind of seems a bit odd that Australia is getting it first, but maybe the government is, just a bit desperate for money. I don't know. But very odd, because England doesn't really seem to care that much about it. But that's interesting. So it's really, really close, the release date of this thing. And obviously the big thing is the price. Now, they did specify the different prices. And I believe for America... Oh, no, sorry, not America. For England, I'm going to use English prices first. The disc version is going to cost £450. Whereas it's going to cost $500/euros elsewhere, or for the countries in which that is your currency. Whereas the digital version is going to cost £260 in England, whereas it's going to cost $400 or euros everywhere else, which is very interesting. Very interesting indeed. I think the prices are okay, more in terms of our currency. I think $450 is okay. It's okay, especially when you can get some kind of like bundle or deal. That seems okay. I mean, obviously Sony shot themselves in the foot when they released PlayStation 3, releasing it about £600, which is why it kind of fell behind in the console race or war, or whatever you want to call it. But it's very smart. It's a very smart move that they made the digital version considerably cheaper, as people will gravitate or consider going all digital in order to save a bit of money, because you are looking at least maybe about £90 to £100 cheaper, which is interesting. It's a deal sweetener at the end of the day, and it's pretty interesting because it is one small step towards the gaming industry becoming completely digital. And I understand that it's probably going to happen sooner than later. I understand people are still kind of iffy about it. But at the end of the day, I get it. Yes, buying physical games does take up space. Sorry, excuse me. But digital media means that Sony has complete control over the prices and what you're allowed to play and when. If Sony wants to charge you £70 for a game, they can, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have two options. You either buy it or you hope that they cut the price. Your options are very limited, as opposed to if you buy physical, you could very simply wait for the price to go down. You could save up points on, let's say, a card you had. You could use a gift card. You could rent the game. You only really have a few options, and this is honestly why bigger corporations want everything to go digital, so they have complete control of things, and it cuts out the middleman, aka mom and pop stores, physical retailers, and let me borrow that game. The video game industry is in a very odd position where it has both its ups and downs. Games are not selling as much as they used to, and that's honestly because they are priced too high. And if the rumors are to be believed, PS5 games are going to be starting at £60. It's bad enough that they tend to be £50 at points. But we'll just have to see. Maybe Sony will actually cut people some slack and drop it by £40 back when it used to be. And speaking of things that are a bit, annoying and silly, we're going to quickly briefly talk about the Crash Bandicoot for It's About Time demo, which released on the 16th of September. And this demo is behind a pre-order. which I find to be extremely frustrating. So me and other people can't get a tease or a taste of this game to see if we're going to like it, because they have decided you have to pre-order the game that comes out in 2 weeks' time in order to play 3 levels of it, which I find is very bizarre. I mean, usually this would mean that the game, or that the publishers knew that the game was bad. The same thing happens with films. Whenever they won't let critics see the film early, it usually means they know the film's bad. So that's the same with games. They won't send out review copies until the game releases because the game is bad. They don't want reviews to destroy it, and they still want to make money. But let's honestly hope not. I'm just going to be honest here. Activision, this is bullshit. You're taking advantage of the fans, you're taking advantage of the hype surrounding this series, and you're also technically taking advantage of YouTubers in some sense. Now let me explain. Some YouTubers were given the demo, which is fine. That's free advertising for you. It's free advertising for them. It benefits them. And then others are going to pre-order the game due to the fear of missing out. Obviously everyone's playing the hot game. I got to pre-order the game. Now I'm not saying I'm 100% against pre-ordering a game if that means you're going to get something out of it. There's nothing wrong with that. I've pre-ordered things that are not games. I pre-ordered games in the past. The main reason I pre-ordered games was because I knew these games weren't going to be mass released. I pre-ordered games like Catherine and Dragon's Crown back in the day because those were not going to be big releases. So when my store got copies in, they only got like a few dozen copies in, and one of those copies was me. That's why I pre-ordered games, to make sure I got that game, not to get a demo. Like, I really don't get this, and I really don't understand their logic of releasing a demo, locking it behind a digital pre-order for the game, because it's not like a physical pre-order. You have to digitally pre-order the game 2 weeks before the game releases. Like, what's the point? Like, I'll wait, thank you. I just don't really understand this logic. I don't really understand their desperation to have people pre-order. I mean, maybe it's because they want to show their higher-ups and their, stockholders that the game's going to sell well through pre-orders, but this just comes across as pathetically desperate. And I'm a bit annoyed that people have obviously fallen for it and have gone and pre-ordered the game. I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to pre-order the game, that's fine, but don't complain next time Activision does something like this again. Because you are part of the problem, not me, okay? I'm not pre-ordering your game, Activision. I'll be buying it when it comes out, like a normal person. But yeah, no, if you disagree with this, don't pre-order the game. Don't buy into Activision's weird, desperate attempts to show that the game's going to sell well. I mean, the game it's Crash Bandicoot. It's going to sell well at the end of the day. And sticking with games, I know this is a game-based podcast, but I think everything here is pretty important. Even if you're not big into games, I think this is stuff that is generally worth knowing about. And the last thing I want to talk about is the fact that Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, the complete edition, was announced during Ubisoft's little showcase thing. So we had like 2 gaming showcases, and I believe PAX is happening as of Monday or something like that, or after this podcast goes up. But to be honest, this was the only thing I cared about during Ubisoft's little thing. Yeah, I know they're remaking a Prince of Persia game, but I've never given a damn about the Prince of Persia games. I think they're all boring. It's a franchise that has never innovated, and it's not worth remaking, in my opinion. But yes, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is finally back. So a little bit of history story. This game came out 10 years ago, back when the film released. It was released digitally. It was critically acclaimed, and then because it was a licensed movie tie-in game, Ubisoft took the game down. You couldn't play it. So for a good 7 or so, maybe 8 or so years, you couldn't play it. If you were lucky enough to download it and board it back then, you still could play it. But for everyone else who obviously, wasn't in the know, wasn't playing games back there, or just, didn't happen to buy it, couldn't buy it, couldn't play it. Most people considered it lost for time, obviously nagging Ubisoft and other people, when's it going to get released, and finally it has happened. Ubisoft did it. This is the biggest bit of news announcement in a while. I'm so freaking happy that one of my favorite games of all time is becoming accessible once again. And I mean, it should have never been taken down regardless of licensing. They should have really done something about, trying to keep it up there, because it is a wonderful game. And I'm also just happy that others will finally be able to play it. If you've never played the game, I highly recommend doing it when it does come out. I put the trailer for this complete edition in the link in the download link and the description, so go check it out. I don't want to be negative too much, but this is only half a win though, because we still need a physical release, because video preservation is important. I don't want this game to get released again digitally, and then PS5 comes out, and then it gets taken down again, and then we're in like another vicious cycle or a loop. I think Ubisoft would have to be stupid not to physically release this game. If not by them, by someone else, like Limited Run Games or I Am 8-Bit, who do limited runs of video games. If anything, they'd be stupid not to. And I mean, I'm pretty sure it is going to get physically released by one of those, because if I remember correctly, Anamanaguchi, who is the band that did the soundtrack for the game, tweeted out a tweet saying that they were speaking to I Am 8-Bit about vinyl soundtrack releases. So I'm guessing that something is going to happen. We might get the soundtrack re-released on vinyl. Hopefully we get the game. I mean, it's not as if people won't buy it. I mean, for 7 years, people have been bugging Ubisoft and whoever to re-release the game. You're basically saying no to free money, because hell, I'll buy a copy for Switch and PS4 if it does come out. I will save that money. I got that money saved. It's in a glass case over there. But I really hope it does. If not, everyone please go out and buy a copy of it and then put it on your external hard drive. That's the only thing I can say, because back then when the PS3 and the 360 came out, that wasn't really a common thing to do. But at least now with PS4 and Xbox One, you can at least put your games or save files on external hard drives and then, go put it into someone else's PS4 and play it. So there's at least a silver lining to some extent. But we need a physical copy, please. Please, please, please. Is the only thing I'm asking for this year. And that's pretty much going to wrap up this podcast. I said it was going to be short. My voice and my throat is killing me. So let me end this podcast really quickly, but we're going to do that with the video of the episode. And that is going to be Groove Armada with Lover for Now. I only just found out about this music video and this song. So happy to hear that legendary duo Groove Armada is back. As well as doing a song with Todd Edwards, who, if you don't know who Todd Edwards is, definitely look him up. He is quite the legend, and you'll understand why these two coming together on one song is pretty interesting. But yeah, wonderful song. Definitely look up the song it samples, and really cool music video. I won't spoil what the music video is and what it looks like, but it's definitely very interesting and amazing in terms of visuals. But yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up this podcast. Once again, I'm going to apologize for my voice. I'm sorry if I sound very strained or very breathless. There's nothing I can do. I'm recording this very early in the morning, and I'm really trying as hard as I can to keep my voice sounding as clear as possible. But as you can tell by the constant breaks, it's not very hard, because my throat gets very dry and I get very breathless really quickly. But yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully it won't be the case next podcast. I am going to say this now really quick. The next podcast is going to be going up after Crash 4 releases. I'm going to record it early so I can go and play Crash 4. And with that being said, I will be going offline. I will not be on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter anyway. I will not be looking at YouTube or anything like that, because I know what YouTube is like. They like to spoil games for you. I know if you ever type in a game into YouTube, let's say a game that just came out, let's say you're really looking forward to the game Cyberpunk 2077, and you've been watching every little sneak peek trailer and all the behind the scenes stuff. The moment that game comes out, someone is going to upload what the final boss looks like, and YouTube will show you that video. And it's frustrating. I don't want to see the final boss or whatever the hell is at the end of Crash 4, or any game for that matter. So I'll be off YouTube I'll be off Twitter. I'll not be looking at that kind of stuff until I have beaten the game. But yeah, that's going to be me for this podcast. Sorry for the voice once again. And I'll end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast.